Excuse me, is there a problem here?
You're in a no parking zone.
Oh, I didn't know.
You didn't see the sign?
That wasn't there when I was here earlier.
Really?
You know, in Italy, they let you park anywhere.
Have a good day, sir.
With Geico, the savings keep on going. Just like this sequel. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Ah! Oh!
Good things our lies don't show, right? A lot of our lies, we can get away with them a long time because they don't show, but this poor Pinocchio guy, his life's tough. And what better way to start out this new message series? The lies that we believe and the truths that we don't. Now you might think that's a little odd, but I promise you as this series unfolds, you're going to find out that those lies, they're sneaky. They sneak up on us. They embed themselves and they sometimes dramatically impact our behavior. And if I were to tell you right out and confront you with them, you'd recognize it, and on a lot of levels you know it's a lie, but man, it can really impact you. You know what the top 2 lies is that we tell ourselves? The top lie is just 2 simple words. I'm fine. We say that all the time. Some of you have come in here in church today and someone asked you, how you doing today? And you said what? I'm fine. That wasn't entirely truthful, right? And that was a lie, wasn't it? You're not fine. You're not horrible, but you're not fine. In fact, do you remember those cop shows we see on TV, where they go through some confrontation with some bad guys and there's bazookas shooting up and they lose about 15 of their comrades and everything else, and it's just and just 2 guys manage to get out of the fight, and they're sitting there and one turns to them and says, "You okay?" "I'm fine." No, they're not fine, right? You know what the second one is? It's the lie we say when we read this: "I have read and agreed to the above terms and conditions." How many times have you just looked at that and you checked the box? Or maybe you signed your name and you dated it and you lied, because nobody's going to read 3 pages of fine print. I remember when I signed the contract to my house. Every other page I was checking that box off, I wasn't reading it all. But we sign it, we date it, we agree to it. Even when you sign on to the internet in the cafe or the restaurant or the coffee shop that you'll go to, here it pops up. Do you agree to the terms and conditions? And what do you punch? I agree, because you want to get on, no matter what it says. Top 2 lies. There's a lot of lies that we call white lies. These are lies that we kind of, in some way, don't really think of them as just outright, bold-faced, black lies. They're white lies. They're little lies. Teeny weeny little lies. They don't really hurt anybody, because most of the time we see that they're just for our convenience. We tell a little bit of lies so we don't have to really explain something big. Well, what did you do this last weekend? Oh, nothing. Nothing's not true. But it's a convenience lie. Or maybe it's a lie we tell just to not hurt somebody's feelings. Like, "Oh, I really like that new haircut," when you don't. Or, "I'll be there 5 minutes. I'll be there in just 5 minutes. We texted." And we're not going to be there. Or maybe we say, I'm sorry, I totally forgot. And we didn't. Or we say, "Well, I didn't get a message." Did you text me? Yeah, I texted you. I didn't get the message. And we did. Or we say, I don't care, and we really do. And then we get mad about something. Those little white lies. We don't see them as really harmful. But one of the things that they do is that they impact our integrity, the way other people look at us. And they say, I know he got that message. Everybody else told me my haircut looks dorky. And I know he didn't forget. And it, in a sort of a silent, quiet ways, impacts what other people think of you. The white lies. And then there are those other lies, a whole category of lies, and these are the ones we're going to focus on the most. It's not so much, it's lies that we say to ourselves. And I bet you didn't think about that. The worst lies that impact our lives the most are the lies that we say to ourselves. The conclusions we make in our minds so that we can sort of try to come to grips with what's going on in our life, especially during crazy and hurtful, harmful times, or the way that we rationalize our past. We oftentimes just come up with a lie. Sometimes we come up with a conclusion and we say, I really can't make a mistake. How many of you ever said that? I really can't make a mistake. Because if I make a mistake, I really have to pay for it. If I make a mistake, I might lose my job. I just can't make a mistake. That's a lie. Because you are going to make mistakes, right? About the lie that you say, nobody cares. Nobody cares or understands about me. Why? Because deep inside we're feeling this sense of profound loneliness, perhaps stress. And so we try to explain that. We try to why is this well, nobody cares about me. Other people have caring people in their lives that care about them, but I don't really have those people in my life. Or sometimes we say to ourselves, I don't think God listens to me. I really need it. I really need a miracle. And I prayed for that miracle, and it didn't happen. And we say, why didn't God like me? What's wrong with me? And then there's that lie as we look at our lives and we've got all these things that we can't understand and explain. We say, well, maybe this is just as good as it gets. Yeah, I know this is terrible and I know this is bad and I know no one else ought to stay in this kind of situation, but maybe that's just as good as it gets. And these are all lies. But we're saying them somehow to make sense in our own mind, even if it's not true, why things are the way that they are. So when we tell ourselves these things, we know they're lies, right? We know a lie is a lie. So why do we still kind of believe them? I mean, you may not ever admit that you believe that lie, but if you looked at your behavior is really saying, no, this is what really is true. Life sucks and this is just as good as it gets. Nobody cares about me. I can't make a mistake. I have to be perfect. And people that is how they're behaving, and I would say that that's what they really believe. And if you confront them with it, and I've tried this many times, I said, when someone says well, this is, my life, I guess this is just as good as it gets. Some people think hell's here on earth. But this is as good as it gets. And I'll look at them and I'll say, that's not right. I mean, that's a lie. That's not true. And what do you think the reaction is I get from those folks? Well, what do you mean? You tell them, they can start getting angry with me. Have you ever noticed that when you tell someone that something is a lie that they're doing, that it's not right, that what they appear to be believing and living by, when you tell them that that's a lie, they get angry at you. And then they begin to defend their lie. Well, you just don't know what life is like in my shoes. And if you were to walk a mile in my shoes, then you would know that this is as good as it gets. And it just snowballs, doesn't it? In those areas where we're hurt, where we're afraid, where we feel stress, where we have things in our past that are still kind of haunting us, we intentionally choose to believe a lie. There's an interesting Bible story about a man in John chapter 5. And John is telling the story about one day when Jesus goes to the healing pool. This is a pool, and people believe that God would send an angel from time to time, and that angel, which nobody could see, would put his hand in the water and stir the water, so the water would kind of stir. And here is what people said, and that if you're the first one to get into the water where the water is stirred, you'll be healed. So this healing pool became so popular that hundreds of people were there all the time. They sort of took over this small little pool. And they were all there, and they were waiting and watching the water constantly. And if the water stirred or bubbled, well then everyone near there, and whatever their infirmity was, whether they were lame or blind or paralyzed, they did everything they could just to scramble into the water to see if they could get healed. Verse 2. Now there in Jerusalem near the sheep gate, a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethsaida, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. And here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. And one who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. Just imagine this guy, 38 years. The life expectancy of men in Jesus' day was 35. He had been an invalid for 38 years, which means that he couldn't take care of himself. He had to have other people help him. So what we kind of surmise is that he had some friend or some relative, and they might sort of help cart him to the healing pool as often as they could. And his days were spent by this pool trying to pick the right spot. Where's the water going to be stirred next? And think about how many times the water stirred, or there were some bubbles, and he was about to get in, and someone who could get around better got in ahead of him. This guy's life was tough. It was really hard. 38 years he had been an invalid. So this day Jesus shows up at the healing pool, and verse 5 says, and this guy who'd been there for 38 years, when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been there in this condition for a long time, he walked over to the guy and he says, do you want to get well? Jesus usually has a little dialogue with people before he says something like that, right? He just, right out of the box, comes up to this guy, says, do you want to get well? Well, what's the right answer? Yes. Yes, I want to get well. But what does he say? He says, sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Okay, let's put this together. Do you want to be healed? You don't understand how bad my life is. I got nobody to help me. Nobody will help me get into the water. And someone else always gets in front of me. He's saying, I've been trying all these years to try to get healing. Do you think this guy's tried prayer? Do you think he's gone to the synagogue? Do you think he's tried all those kind of things? Do you think he's done everything that any doctor that he could afford or go to would say for him to do? I mean, he, like many other people, they were at last resort. In his mind, there's only one way he envisions that he can be healed, and what's that? The water, the pool. He's not even thinking about Jesus. Maybe he's not even aware of Jesus. This guy wasn't looking for Jesus, but Jesus came and was looking for him. And Jesus came in, and we have no idea how many people he stepped over to get to him. How many people that needed healing, that really were struggling and suffering. And what does Jesus do? He walks by them and he goes over to this one guy, the guy that seems to not have a clue about Jesus at all. And Jesus says, do you want to be healed? And the guy is giving him these excuses. He's saying, nobody cares about me. I don't have anybody to help me. And when I try to get in the pool, one of these knuckleheads, jumps in before I do. And everybody else gets their miracle and I don't get their miracle. And my life is hopeless. I'm helpless. I'm all alone. And he's giving all these excuses. And what does Jesus do? He says, get up, pick up your mat and walk. Jesus doesn't argue with him, right? He says, get up, pick up your mat and walk. And then once the man was cured, he picked up his mat and he walked. This tells us a whole lot about what happens to us sometimes. And that is that all these lies that we're telling us, that I'm all alone, nobody cares about me, this is never going to work, I've tried it before and I have failed, and my life's never going to get any better, and this is just my life and it sucks. I mean, when people they hear all those lies that are being told, and they get stuck. They get so stuck they can't see anything else. They can't see anything other than their idea of what the answer to their life is. And the idea of what his answer was the water pool, and that was wrong. Because the answer to his life was Jesus standing in front of him saying, do you want to get well? And he couldn't even answer the question. Now that's what lies do to us. This guy was locked down. He couldn't see anything else but the water. And the water couldn't help him. The water couldn't be his savior. The water was not the Son of God that God had sent to him that day. I'm all alone, I'm hopeless, and I'm helpless. And he's just stuck tight. Why does God want us to know about this story? This story is there not really to tell us about the awesome miracle working power of Jesus. I mean, that's there. But this story is there to challenge us to think about the lies that we believe and the truths that we don't. You see, we get these cluster of lies that are working inside of us. That there's something wrong with me. Things never work out for me. I don't ever seem to be lucky. I'm helpless, hopeless, unimportant, worthless. Life is never going to get any better. We think those things inside. Now, we're never going to admit to, we're never going to walk up to someone and say, I'm just worthless. Or I'm just hopeless. Or I'm just helpless. We're not going to say those things. But those lies are deep down there. And they get us stuck. And we can't see the answer that God wants us to look toward. Have you ever felt that in spite of your best efforts, you tried so hard, in spite of your best efforts, you lost? And some of those losses feel like there's no way of coming back. I bet each and every one of us, in something that's happened in our lifetime, in those in those years we've been trying to figure out life and how it works and how to make it work, we've all had those moments where we feel like our best efforts haven't worked. Maybe it's in raising kids, maybe it's in your marriage and in work and efforts that you made to try to excel and get ahead, that your best efforts left you with nothing but a loss. And some of those losses feel like, that door is totally closed to me forever. And there's no way to come back from what happened there and the way things unfolded. When you feel like that, you're stuck. You're stuck. And you won't see the right answer. Those are the lies that we believe. And sometimes they get us stuck. I don't know, maybe today, some area in your life where you feel like I'm stuck. I'm just stuck. I'm just not getting ahead. This isn't working. Nobody's cooperating. Everything in my life has just been turned upside down. Have you had those times in your life where everything's turned upside down? Just like, how can that happen? But it does. What is the truth about this story? The first truth is that God had always planned to heal him, and this was his day. God never planned for this guy to die without being healed and touched by Jesus. The truth is he sent Jesus to him. This guy wasn't looking to Jesus. This guy was totally spiritually unconnected. But that day, the truth was that God specifically sent Jesus to find him. He was lost and far from God. He never imagined that God was going to come and find him, and nobody else would have imagined it either. He came specifically to him, and this is really the gospel in it. It's not that we deserve it. It's not that we have done something that we've accomplished something. But God did it just because he loved us. And he offered this guy his grace. And the answer to this guy's problem was never going to be an urban legend. It was never going to be the folklore and of the angels stirring water. I mean, God doesn't play those games. God doesn't deal, in our lives, with this game of chance. See if you can be the lucky person and on the spot and you get your miracle today. God's not doing that. God specifically picks the moment and he sends his son, or he intervenes in our life in some way. It's not based on our performance, whether we had quick reflexes to jump in the water real fast, but it's all because God has chosen to reach out and to save us because he loves us. And on that day, this man, his lies that had shut him down where he couldn't see anything but the healing pool, Jesus steps into his life and brings healing and truth. No, you're not alone. No, you're not worthless. No, you're not helpless. No, this is not as good as it gets. He comes and he turns and he dispels all of those lies and tells him the truth is God loves you. He's always planned on healing you. He sent me here and here. Take up, stand up, get up, take up your mat and walk away. And he does. His life is totally changed in that moment. Jesus tells us something. He says that Jesus says, if you listen to me, you will know what? You know the truth. And the truth will set you free. That guy wasn't just healed. That guy was set free. Think about all the anger and the disappointment and everything that's going on in his life that he was holding on to, that was giving him ulcers deep in his belly, that he was so frustrated with. God changes all. Jesus changes all that in a moment. He brings him truth. He's not alone. He's cared for. He's loved. Not because of anything that he did. It's just because God values him. And he has a future. And he's not hopeless, but he has a great future through Jesus Christ. You see, what we have to do is we have to put our lies up there and look at them compared to the truth of Jesus Christ. But what does truth sound like? Let me just give you a few. There's nothing so wrong with you that would make you unacceptable to God. There's nothing so wrong with you that will make you unacceptable to God. Because you are acceptable to God, every person, no matter what. That's the truth. And Jesus is the answer to the things that we're struggling with right now. Jesus is the answer. That doesn't mean that he's just, he's the shiny answer that just makes our problems go away. But he's the one that comes to us and he involves our struggles as he brings an answer into our life. Oftentimes the time in our life when we meet Jesus is a time of deep struggle and difficulty. Why is that? Because he's trying to let us know that he is the answer. And listening and seeing him is really our way forward, and not all the other ways that we're trying to get forward. That's the truth. And here's some more truth. We don't need luck when we have Jesus. Jesus is not working with chance. He is working with determination and his planning. He has a moment to meet each and every one of us. He has a moment to be with us in those times when you need him the most. He knows when that is. He will be there. He has promised. We are never alone. We're never helpless. We are never without hope. And that's actually the truth. I want to challenge you in love to share those words of truth with the people in your life that you love when you hear them trapped by something, when they say, well, things never seem to work out for me. This is about as good as it's going to get. I'm worthless. I'm helpless. Nothing works. God didn't listen to my prayers, etc. Just say, that's not true. Just say it. That lie's got you hogtied, and you're not going anywhere with it. And it may very well be the moment when you're talking to him is that moment when Jesus will show up and in a powerful way change everything. But we want to believe the truth, and that is that when we speak the truth, people get set free. I want to challenge you to just put whatever's stressing you out alongside these truthful promises that you've heard today and you've heard for many years. And just ask yourself, am I believing the truth, or am I letting myself sort of be influenced by a lie? And step into the truth. And speak that truth to other folks. Because the truth will set you free and it will set them free.